Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. Happy New Year to all my subscribers and viewers alike. It's probably quite an exciting year this year when we get going. Been a very busy end of the year for my work, my own private work that I do, not scooter related, which has taken up a lot of time recently, but you know, these things happen. This is only really a hobby to just help people with building their own engines and whatever. This is one of my friends' Lambretta 200. It's a Scooters India engine that he's had a bit of problems with recently, and being the good chap I am, I've volunteered to have a look at it for him. I stripped it down. I didn't bother videoing stripping it down because literally it's, you know, I've done it on every single video, but I didn't build this engine, somebody else built this engine for him, and he paid quite a few quid to have it built. And you know, I just like looking at other people's ideas when they're building stuff, you know, what they set up an engine to do and stuff like that. And I've noticed a few things with the engine that I've reported to him. Number one being that pinion on the kickstart. I know it's it doesn't look bad, but it's not very sharp, it's rounded. That can be a consequence of when people kick over the bike, they leave their foot on the kickstarter when it's down and it just ratchets off of the end of the gearbox. You know, where it kicks into the gearbox, you hear a da 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 noise. That's quite prevalent in a lot of older Lambrettas, to be honest. That was the first thing I already knew about that, because when he was kicking it, occasionally it would just slip straight to the floor, and it happened to me when we had this engine in the bike and we were kicking it over. You know, I knew there was a problem anyway, so when I took the engine side off, and this is a uni case, so you know, a previous owner to himself has spent money on this engine. I don't know if you can read that. It says uni 22 0 105 20. So it's here's a GP 201. What I found when I took the side of the engine off, obviously I was taking it off to check there was no chips on the end of the gears on here. I'm trying to get you around to a bit more better light. It seems a bit dark in here today, but I'll move that across a bit. I was trying to sort of check these. You can just turn the engine over and the gearbox will turn, and I'm quite happy with, you know, the state of the first gears. They're not chipped. They're in pretty good nick, to be honest with you. This engine was always, for a standard 200, you know, 2 up or whatever, it motors on, so you know, it's been a good engine for him. It was just going through it, I found out that this pressure plate here is an LI one, and the difference between an LI and a GP one is this flat part here hasn't got, I don't know if you can actually see that, let me get a smaller screwdriver, but on here, on an LI, this part here has got a little thimble on it, like a little nipple, and then you get a cap that goes over it, so when this lever's pushed, and it actually doesn't have that on an LI, so the thimble itself acts on that part there. On a GP, obviously you have the phosphor bronze, you know, pinion that moves against here, and I don't know if you can actually see that. You see that where it's worn? It's got a dome on that. If I can turn it. That was the first. As soon, obviously I pulled the engine side off and noticed that. That to me was a red flag that this plate is wrong. That's an LI plate. So what he's done is, because it spins on there all the time, the slightly higher part that, you know, has not been ground off properly and flattened in a lathe or whatever, also as well, the rivets are going to wear through and this is going to come off eventually. and if that gets into your gears or whatever, you're over the handlebars. So I would not have put that in an engine, but that's me, and that proves that it's the wrong part anyway. You know, I'll give him the option of to keep that or not. Personally, I wouldn't, but each to their own. At the moment, you know, it could last for thousands and thousands of miles. The other thing I noticed as well, I think there's too much play here in the chain. Maybe not, maybe I was being a bit overcritical. I just thought that that was a bit too much play. You know, I'd have taken maybe half of that play out. And to be fair, it might have been, you know, it's a new chain, it could have stretched. So I know for a fact that chain was changed when this engine was built. So it's quite probable and possible that the chain is just slightly spread a bit, you know, as he's been driving along, and he has done quite a few to the coast journeys, etc., and riding around. I wouldn't say he's done excessive miles on it, but he's done a few miles on it, so he can't really complain. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock the tab back on here and here, and just take a bit more of the slack out of that. It's just personal preference. Like I say, you know, some people say half an inch or whatever. I'd say that's probably more than 12.5 mil. You know, I'd say that's quite a bit. And it's not only here, it's here as well, so it's not under tension. If you can see when I pull up how much better that chain looks, it just looks like it drives more. I haven't really looked at the sprocket, so I'll just spin that around and just check all of them. You know, it's got no piston and barrel on it at the moment, and I'm going to explain to you what I found with the piston and barrel. He just said to me that it had cut out, and I came round to his house a couple of weeks ago, and you know, when you speak to people, my opinion of or my gut feeling was, I wonder if he's had a seize or whatever. And if I move my barrel out the way, hopefully my big head's not in the way too much. So the first thing I did when I came round was do a pressure test, which is a kit like this. They sell it for cars. I don't know if I can push that back in so you can see it without everything falling out. And we were getting 0. There was no compression whatsoever, which was a red flag. I thought maybe he's got a you know, he's hold the piston, because he did say at the time that he was driving and he just cut out, which is a classic sign of the piston being hold, because you've got full compression, no compression. You've got no compression, you can have all the spark in the world and the scooter won't go. I'm quite happy with checking the crankshaft. There's no play, and it's rotating lovely and freely. So, you know, it's not it's a bit oiled up at the bottom from the petrol and what have you. I don't know if you can see that, so I'll have to clean that out anyway before it comes back again. But I'm quite happy. There's nothing wrong with the crank, it seems fine. There's a couple of bolts when we took it apart at his house, washers etc., that I don't like in there. I will go through that with yourselves. And so if we just move the engine out of the way, and we'll get on. This is his barrel. Now this is going to be hard to show you. I'll probably start with the piston. This is one of my spare barrels. So if I take the piston out of that barrel, so we've got his stuff on top, not mine. And I'll move my barrel out of the way. So what had actually happened, if I clean up the piston, I don't know if you can see that on the side. Let me get my screwdriver again to point out the places. This piston had started to disintegrate, the edge on here and a few points on there. That can be when people are a bit heavy-handed if they put stuff together, but all of these rings basically were like that. They were absolutely welded in flat. So if you can see the bottom of here, it's basically got seizure marks right the way around, right the way across the top. All the rings have got seizure marks on them. The top end was free, and what I've done is I just used a load of heat and just doctored them out one by one. And what I haven't done at the moment is check the ring gap. to see if the ring gap was set up all right on there. It's a standard size piston. It just seems very, very tight in this barrel. Not the piston seems all right, but the rings just seem very, very tight. So I will measure the ring gap. I haven't done that yet, like I said. That will prove whether the, you know, if the rings are too tight, all you're doing is inducing friction. Friction is heat. And the barrel itself, I have tried to hone the rubbish out of it, and I've been successful in most of it, apart from the bottom. You know, that needs a rebore. I don't know if you can see in there. Let me go and get a light and I'll cut back in again. Right, so I've got the LED light, and what I'll probably do is I'll just drop the camera down so that we've got a better view into the barrel. So if I now put the barrel round, orientated the correct way, and try and get the light in there. So we've got right the way, virtually all the stroke of the piston from there right the way across to the front. I'll turn that round again. Well, I'll leave it at a bit of an angle so you can see the damage. This is all remnants of the piston, and I was trying to just hone it out. As you can see, 99% of it's been successful. If you can get rid of all the old piston and you know, new piston and new rings, etc., that might be able to go again. Personally, I wouldn't, but you know, it's not my money I'm spending, so I've advised the new barrel and piston. But he's going to have a look for me and see what he's got. But generally, that's the damage in the cylinder. Scooters India are very, very hard cylinders. They are good cylinders, no matter what most people say. If you've got a genuine Scooters India one, it's as good as anything. I would say they're on a par with Innocenti First Strength, you know, for being good cylinders on general use. Tuning's a different matter. You know, the cast iron cylinders don't dissipate the same heat as an alley one, hence why we've got alley kits at the moment that seem prevalent in the scooter world. So we've got, that's the cylinder basically, and this is the damage on the piston. Now I'll be able to show you a lot better by shining some light on it. So from the skirt all the way up to the tip, and I don't know if you can pick out, but there's tons of damage on the rings. Now I'm not 100% sure if it's the piston breaking up that's caused the damage, or it's the rings being too tight breaking up. But what I did was I moved the rings from their positions just to see, you know, in my barrel what it was like, and it seemed fine in my barrel. You know what I mean? It's not tight in my barrel at all, but my barrel is slightly oversized anyway. It's not been rebored, but you can see the top end, the bottom end of the engine is where obviously most of the heat is in an engine. That's why on the Lambretta cowlings, they have, the later ones had a little shield up here inside the cowling to direct air around the exhaust port. That's why the original design of them is more down to the bottom of the barrel than the top, because the top part's getting the free flow all the time. So he has got a couple of marks on the top. That one's quite a bad seize. So I think he's been lucky in a way where he's, you know, he's had a few seizures with it, and the seizures are on the actual piston. Now it could be that that's a cheap piston and it's expanding too much. I don't really know. It's got no markings on it other than 315 or something. 31. It's hard to make out what that says. Is it free SC? And it's got some it's not an old piston because it's dots where it's been etched what it is. I'm not actually sure what make it is though. It's probably some cheap Indian piston, not a Marl or a Gutsi, which are good Indian pistons. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these rings out, stick them in the barrel, his barrel, and get some feeler gauges and just check what the end gap on these is, because it could be, like I was saying, you know, it could be just that that's a cheap piston, it's expanding. You know, it does seem very tight to start with, like I say, in the barrel with them rings in. You know, I can, when it's in my barrel, it moves up and down quite easily. In this barrel, the original barrel, and bear in mind I've honed this, it's moving a lot better now, but I haven't got the rings in. So it's possible that these rings don't belong with this piston. You know, they're a different make and different heat. You know, it's, when you're building Lambrettas, these are the sort of things you encounter all the time. You're better off to have a piston with a ring. So if you've got a piston that's made with rings, not bought in with separate rings, you're not mismatching parts, manufacturers, etc. You've just got, you know, you've got a good piston, you've got good rings, you've got a decent cylinder, and there's nothing wrong with the seal. I cleaned up the head and I'm quite happy with the head. It's a proper Scooters India one. Nothing wrong with that head at all. It just needs a bit of a polish. But there's no damage inside it, which is what I was expecting from, you know, there's bits of piston missing off that on the side. Now, whether they were previous to this engine rebuild, but these damage marks here, I'm hoping that it's not when somebody's put the piston rings in, they've been heavy-handed, you know, the circlip pins that hold it in. But it's on both sides. But I had another friend's scooter that he was dead lucky. This has started to break here. And he's been running an RT225 kit now, Mark Broadhurst kit, for probably about 4 or 5 years now. It's got to be pre-COVID time. So, you know, if you do it right, do it first time, do it right, take your time, and you're going to have a reliable scooter. But like I say, everybody's got their own idea. That's why I do like working on, you know, engines that somebody else has had a go at. I'm not perfect by any means, you know. I've had problems, as you know, with the my own 225 this year, where I got away with a crank that seized, and you find out later on in the year that you know, people don't recommend the crank that was fitted to it. I've got a Darrell Taylor tuning crank in there at the moment. I must admit it's got a longer stroke than it had before, but it seems a hell of a lot smoother. Honestly, it's it doesn't seem, you know, like the engine struggling to move. It just seems that, you know, it wants to just go, and very less vibration than, you know, standard Lambretta's got. So like I say, I'll be pulling off this flywheel in a bit, and I'll show you what I mean by again, I don't know whether my friend's done it or the previous builder's done it, but you should have, if I move my head out of the way again, you should have these types of washers, smaller obviously, but the flat domed washers like that underneath the bolts or the nuts holding on the flywheel stator. And these have got different washers. I did notice that, and being a perfectionist that I am, sometimes I can't stand silly things like that. And it just means, I mean, it's not hitting, but we were getting an horrendous squeal, which turned out to be this when you were kicking the bike over. But these bolts on the bottom can quite easily rub against the flywheel, and you get like a rubbing noise. It can be very slight, it can be very annoying as well. You know, it's just, I'm going to take that off and put the stator on properly, and when he gets me a cylinder and what have you, whichever way he decides to go, this engine will be a good engine. I've got no doubt about that. It's a bit grubby, but it's on a road going bike. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull off the rings off the piston. The way I do it is a knife or a screwdriver, and just, you know, just open them up like that, bring them over. They're a hell of a lot more easier than they were when I tried to get it off originally. So there's number 2. I'll just show you how quickly you can do it. and number 3. In fact, I've gone up there, but I normally go down. Whew. So there's number 3 off. So what's that taken me? 10 seconds. And now I did clean these out, but I put some petrol because I just wanted to make sure that they were seated properly and not causing any problem. The grooves were cleaned out, and they are a bit oily now, which is what I'd expect. So what I'm going to do is just clean up the rings best I can with a rag, and then stick them in one by one. So I'll put them in the top first, and I'm going to go and get the bottom of the piston and just tap it in so it's level. That'll do. Get my feeler gauges, which should be up there. There they are. And we'll just see what gap we've got. So what you need to do here is, I mean, that gap looks fine, I must admit, if not a tad big. Yeah, so it's 0.50, so that's not too bad. Right, bear in mind I've honed this barrel, so it could have been, or it would have been slightly tighter than that, but I don't think that's too bad. So what we do now is move it to just behind the inlet and outlet ports. I'm just over the port there, and of course because it's turned, it's gone into the port. Right, so I've gone in past that now. I just want to go a bit closer to them ports. And what you basically, that's not level. You want the rings to be level again, and again we know it's 0.5 up the top. That won't go through, so we've not got a straight barrel. It went through with a push. Now I'm not 100% sure if that's level or not, but it didn't go straight through. It sort of, I've had to push it through. That's tighter there, and then what we'll do is we'll bring it down the back end. I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second. So we'll bring it down just below the transfer ports, and again, I mean, this is really, we need to put, and that's gone straight through and it's loose. So what I would say, we've got a barrel that's okay at the beginning, so I'm trying to show you. So it's okay here, it's tighter here, so it's coming in, and it's a bit tight at the back. So we've got like a barrel that's not true 100%. So if it's running back and it's getting tighter and looser at the top, you will get more marks coming forward, and you've got friction. That's only one though, so we'll check the other ones one at a time. And on all 3 of them should be roughly the same ring gap. I'll clean this one up again. This is number 2. Well, we can start this way. You don't have to start top, bottom, middle, or whatever. And then we can put that in there. That doesn't go in there. I can force it in. So we'll push that. I want to get it past where the ports are, so it will just push straight through. We'll get that and push it in there. So it's just past the exhaust. A little bit more, that'll do. And then we'll measure that again. That goes in. So again, according to this, we've got a tighter end, and I'm imagining that does go straight in there. You can probably see the gap if I move that down again with the light. You can see the gap on there, and I'll push the rings right the way down now to the top. You don't want to measure right at the lip, because the rings never hit that lip. See, that ring would indicate to me that it's tight at the back and they're okay at the front. That's why I always say you need to check it in 3 positions. So number 3, let's give that a clean up. We'll start at the front end this time. And I want to put that ring in so it'll go straight all the way in. I'll just bring that past where the wear point is, and we'll have a look on this. That fits straight in, it's loose. So down to the middle again. We passed, we've not passed it yet. That'll do. That's loose. And then we'll come down this end, and I'm expecting this one to be tight again. So I'll push it through. Yeah. No, that one's okay. Now, depending on obviously how much material's been lost when these have seized, you know, it's not 100% test, but it's a good indication. Going by 2 out of 3, it's tighter, more open at the top end here. So I would say that that's going as a V. It's not 100% true barrel. If I grab my one, I'll just do a comparison on it. Well, this is my worn out barrel, if you like, and we'll just take any of the piston rings to start with and stick them in, and I'll just line that up again. So it's just in a bit. I've got a feeling that it's going to be, yeah, nice. Down past here. We're in enough. Yeah, we're in enough. Turn that round. Yeah. And then we'll push the first ring in to the end again. And unfortunately it's just out, but that one indicates to me that that is true, because I've got the same ring gap all the way down, and we'll go the opposite way now. Push that in again. And straighten it up. Yeah. Into the middle. And again, we're just going before the ports. Yep, and the top. Probably gone a bit too far with that one. Yeah, I have. A bit more than that. And that. So that would indicate to me that we've got a, although it's done loads and loads of miles, as you can see, it did have a seize in it on the bottom. Nowhere near as bad. It's been hanging around for months as well. That's nowhere near as bad as the cylinder off of it, and it does appear to be a lot more true than my friend's one. So we'll get the piston again, and we'll just do it from the top again. Right. Yep. Past the rings. I don't know if that will go past the ports or not. Yeah, it did. Just about. So we're in on the top, no problem. And then towards the back. And up here. Yeah. See, I've not pinched on any of them. That's 2 out of 3 at the moment. And because I put it to this line on here, I can do that again. So we're measuring basically from the same point, and I can already see we've got a gap there. No problem, straight through, up behind the ports again. Yeah, and then we'll go right up the top again. It's tedious, but you know, I mean, I can already see the gap and that's not pinching. So I would say that my barrel, with all the miles it's done on it, is better than my friend's barrel. And it, you know, when I put the piston in with these rings on that are seized, it goes up and down this barrel a lot nicer than it does his own barrel. So you know, it's just one of them things where my own gut feeling is that these have not been, it could be, like I was saying, because they're being welded in as much, you know, they don't appear to be the same. That one's okay. I'm seeing the ring gaps on them, if they're lining up. Yeah, I would say they've been, yeah. Now, I don't know if a previous builder's actually done that. If they're too tight, what you do is you just take a little bit of the end of the ring just out of there and there, just to make the gap larger. But if they're too tight to start with, you're just going to have a seize mobile anyway, and it looks like he's had loads of seizures. That's my take on that. So what I'm going to do now is you know, we've done this again on previous videos, so I won't bother to show it, but we've got the flywheel to come off next, and then I'll cut back in and show you what I didn't like with the flywheel. You know, the holding bolts on it. Also as well, he's got the side casings being held on with bolts. I prefer studs and washers. That's just me again. Simply for the fact you're not destroying the threads in your side casing. So I'll move his piston away. So what I'll do is I'll cut away, like I say, turn the engine around, get this off. So it's just your 17mm. It's right hand thread, so tightening up is undoing it and loosening it is tightening it up. And about £55 will be the tightening value when we come to stick it back on again. But like I say, I've got a what do you call it, drive, you know, one of the torque driver. I'm going to just pull that off and then cut back in again. Right, so I've taken off the flywheel, and this is what I was trying to show you. It's probably easy to pick it up, excuse the camera. See that washer? That washer's different. That washer's different. There's nothing wrong with the bolts, they're all stainless steel. And let me get some lighting on here. It doesn't flash. On the top, can you see the wear on the cable clamp? Yeah. If I put my finger in, just there you're looking. That's been rubbing against the flywheel. So hopefully in here, or one of my many screw places, I shall have, there's one. They're the correct washers that go under there. They're just, you know, like C-shaped washers that clamp. One. And another one. And another one. And what they do, because they're thinner, the bolt then is, or the head of the bolt is in more, so there's less chance of that part rubbing on the flywheel on here. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see, if I turn the light back on again, there has been rubbing on that right the way around the outside of it. So it's not the best flywheel I've ever seen, and definitely not the worst. So yeah, it's just, it is what it is. Also as well, if I can show you again, if if you can see in there, but these magnets need to be kept clean, not have all the crap that they've got around them, because that'll interfere with the firing point. So that flywheel wants cleaning up. I'm going to pull off this and just have a look. It's should be a 10. I'm going to use a smaller socket set. 3/8 should do. 10 mil. Where are you? 10. 8, 9, 10. Use the right sockets and it'll work. Alright, ratchet even. Not worried about timing because I'm going to do that. So let's undo these. I need to undo the cable clamp as well because I'm taking it all off. This did have a broken white, which is the earth cable that goes to the CDI. I've resoldered that, so I've had this off. That's how I knew that these, you know, washers to me are terrible. Right, there's one bolt. 2. And what we did do is we've left off the clamps on the top. My friend can put them back on. Not a big job. So we can just pull the cable straight through. Ordinarily you'd have to undo the 2 little screws and the rubber that clamps this cable. So pull that out. And we're looking at, there's no damage on the flywheel, so we can go through metering these out. But I've already done that anyway, so I know they're okay. But knocking over stuff again. Excuse my head. So we're looking at basically just giving that a wipe inside there, making sure there's no contaminants. The crank looks fine. Woodruff keys in there, we can pull that out. There you go, Woodruff key. There is a bit of debris in here. And you do need this to be clean, because anything, especially metal in here, you get metal between the rotor and the flywheel, or I should say the stator and the flywheel. And I don't know if you can see, there's a couple of marks on that, so he's had something in and caught that one, but that looks fine to me. It's not a Scooters India one, it's a pattern one, but it looks good to me. And that, give that a clean. The Woodruff key I'm talking about, that the Woodruff key looks fine, no damage on it, so that'll go again. These bolts, and again I normally like, even though you see that's not level, just get a pair of pliers and we just push that level again. Ideally you want that when it's clamping up here to be flat against the, hopefully that didn't cock up too much, but what I was basically saying was, before my battery died on me, again they don't seem to last very long when it's cold, and it is quite a cold day today. rainy as you can probably hear. You want this bracket here to be flat against the mag housing, so that one's still a little bit proud. What we can do is get a hammer, or even just the end of the pliers and just knock it through. Yeah, so it's level and that'll lie flat, because what you want is, you want that not to be rubbing. You don't want anything rubbing the flywheel if you can help it, because although it will eventually wear, you've got little iron filings that clog up your two magnets that indicate your firing point. So I've gained a couple of washers and I've lost a couple of washers, so hey ho. But like I say, they're stainless steel. As you know, I've got a preference for stainless steel. But you see how much thinner that is compared to, we'll pick the worst one compared to that on there. You see how much closer that bolt's going to go now in. Compared to what they were. At the moment I'll just keep them washers in his, he's got his own ice cream tin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another one just for this. And we'll loosely put these back in so we don't lose them. One, two. And that one. If I can't get my washers again. Then I'll be happy with that then. But they've all got flat washers on them now. These haven't either. The bolts holding the sides on. So if I've got another two, I'll change them as well. And these are all left over from when you're building engines. I've got one there. I've definitely got one. Because you're looking for one more, it's always a pain. But that might be the other one that I need. So just to be pedantic, I'm going to undo these two and change them washers as well. Because again, although you shouldn't never hit these ones, it will give you a bit more space away from the flywheel. I'm sorry if I'm covering you there. These being nylox, they wouldn't have been nylox originally. They would have been quite hefty. If I can find the nuts, I'll show you. That's not one. Yeah, that's one. So they're the original nuts, not them. They're a lot thicker than the nylox. In fact, there's 3 of them. So I'm not changing them because they're stainless steel anyway. And that's going one bit too far in my opinion. So I'll remove these thick washers and stick them in these box again, and we'll stick these ones on like so. one. No, it did start to turn, but again, using gloves is a pain, but it keeps your skin from getting dermatitis, etc. So there you go, and then we'll just tighten them up hand. Bear in mind they are nylocks. You're probably better off just to use your ratchet to do them anyway. And we'll set that to tighten up and just bring them both up tight, and then half a turn or quarter of a turn will do that. You get a feeling for them, they're nice and tight, and although the studs are still out, we are in more, but that should never ever, because of this thickness here, that should never ever, you know, stop the cause the flywheel from hitting it. Because if you think of it, this bolt, the head of it is always going to be proud, so it'll always be higher than these studs, but it doesn't hurt to bring everything back in. Like I say, the further you can get it away from the flywheel, in my opinion, the better, just for a quiet life if nothing else. But yeah, you can see I did the earth on this. He caught them in when he'd put them in. There's not much gap there. Just need to put that back into the flywheel. Again, always put your stator in with a flywheel, it stops it demagnetizing. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know, that's what I've always was taught. So you always don't create a problem. But what I was doing as well was, I've got a little brush, and what I was doing was just cleaning this out with a bit of petrol with 2-stroke in it, cleaning it up. But I did manage to knock it over. That's boring stuff, but that's the wrong one. Find my petrol can with a bit of, yeah, I've got some petrol. Stinks a bit, but it cleans up the crap off of it. So I'll put a little whack into that, and that's why I've got so many rags out. So let's put the lid back on that. Put a couple of rags under it because it's obviously going to leak out. I'll put that rag there. I'm going to grab that one from over there, sorry, moving the camera, and just dip that in there and just do that. Yeah, and I don't know if you can see, but I can already see that that's cleaner. You can take the bolt out, put back in then. Right, well, I'm going to clean that up as best I can, and we'll see how that goes. It's pointless just showing you boring stuff, isn't it? You know, that is boring. So, you know, you're just dipping a brush in and just doing that. You know, the brush will get in there. Or what you can do is put that edge of that on a screwdriver, like so, if you haven't got a brush, and you can get in places like so. You know, it's like using what you've got. I can already see there's a load of old dried petrol, etc. in there. Look, black. You get, obviously, cleanliness, I don't know about next to godliness, but cleanliness is what you're after. The bearings and that are brilliant, you know, I can't fault them. Don't know what make they are or whatever, but they're fine. These screws here are to take off the mag side. So you'd have 2 T spanners with M6 thread that go in there, you tighten them and it pulls it towards you. We're not taking it off, we've got no need to do that, so I'm going to cut away now. Thanks for bearing with me over the couple of months that we've not done anything, but I have got lots coming up. You know, there's bits and bobs going on. I've got cleaning out my petrol tank and my Series 2. I'll explain that when the cleaning agent comes. I'll explain what's going on with that. I've basically used up all of my cider vinegar, which I always use, and it's lost its sparkle, so to speak, but that's for another day anyway. Take care everybody, bye for now.